Greetings. Once again, it's your boy, Cypher Da MC, host of the Into the Cypher podcast. You know, your guru, your baristo, all that good stuff here. Thank you for dropping by. Thank you for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, The Real Cypher TV, or if you're listening in on any one of our platforms that we're available on, appreciate you. As you know, another week has gone by, and you know what the topic of today is. I told you we're going to get into these topics that are basically going to kind of push us to be the very best people that we can be, human beings that we can be.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
Sometimes we got to tackle these hard topics that we don't want to discuss because we think we're doing everything right. But sometimes we just need to look at it from a different perspective as we continue to be on this journey together. And we want to make sure that we are just, being the very best that we can be. But before we get into anything, you already know what we got to do. We got to get rid of those disclaimers, get them out the way. We got to get them out the way. So, of course, I don't have, I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist.
Nope.
I don't have a master's or doctorate from Harvard.
Nope.
I am just a regular. Say it with me now. Joe Schmo.
Yep.
Just a regular guy, just giving you the benefit of his own experience, but also just want to look at things from a different perspective just to see how we can improve. And again, try to be the best versions of ourselves. And as you know, today's topic, as I alluded to last week, are you setting up your kids for success, or are you setting them up for failure? Now, of course, parents are going to be like, no, of course not. I'm making sure that I'm providing for my kids. I'm doing all the good stuff, giving them a place over, roof over their heads, food to eat, trying to teach them, right from wrong, how to treat people, all that good stuff. And that is great. I applaud each and every one of you that are doing that. Continue to do so. I'm just going to touch on a few things that maybe we can try to, if you're right here, if you're listening to the podcast, you can't see where my hand is, but if you're right here, right about eye level, you want to kind of maybe take it up a notch or two. There was a time in this country where America was number one in everything. Education, literacy, I can't even talk.
Say that again, sorry.
Literacy rate, all that good stuff. There was a time when America was number one, and, everyone wanted to come to America because America had the best schools, had the best education, had the best everything. That may have been 20, 30 years ago, maybe even 40. You're talking about the 80s here. Now, America, if you do any statistics and are into those numbers and things of that nature, like I am, we're like in the 20s, the 30s when it comes to literacy and education and, health and things of that nature. And it's like, where did we fall off? Where did we go astray even? And that's what I just want to touch on today. I ran across two articles. I'm definitely going to leave the link in the description box below if you're watching this on YouTube, as well as in the podcast itself. One of which is from August of last year, an article by Tiff Gibson, found it on Troomi.com, Troomi, TROOMI.com. Parenting and technology. The title of the article is Raising Kids Then and Now, the Evolution of Parenthood. And basically what the article covers is basically a dynamic shift in family. Like in the 60s, kids grew up for the most part in a two-parent household.
Wow.
That's not to say that single parents didn't exist. It just was very uncommon. You would go to someone's house, and they say roughly almost 90% of children lived with two parents during the 60s. Now, currently, it's right around 70%, but you have to think about it. That's almost a 20% difference between when kids, the two eras, the two time frames where Now kids, can come from a single parent household more oftentimes than not. Like what changed? Like, of course, parents were more apt to stay together if they were married during the 60s than they are now. It's just a total shift in mindset and things of that nature. Parents are spending less time at home. There used to be a homemaker during the 60s and 70s. Mothers would be at home with the kids or be there to help them with their homework, take care of the house, things of that nature. But there was a shift, and now more mothers are working parents and things of that nature. And even those those kids that come from two parent households, guess what? The parents are not home. Both parents are working, and that kind of adds to the shift as far as between then and now. Like, how much time is being invested in our children if we're not there? It's one thing for our children to say, "Hey, I want to participate in sports, or I want to participate, in this, in drama or theater in school." Well, if the parents are working, how much time are we devoting to going to make sure that not only do our children get to the auditions or the rehearsals or what have you, but how often are we working with them, going over their lines, or much less being able to view their play once it comes? And, our kids are facing a totally different, or at least, or should I say, at least much more, things that can kind of deter them in many different ways. I'll give you an example. There was another article I came across here from verywellfamily.com, and it pretty much goes over the 10 social issues and problems that trouble today's teens, like well before they get to adulthood. Our kids are facing social issues, like they're facing depression as teenagers before they get to adulthood. Before there's a name or anything associated with it, some, dissociative disorder or what have you, they're facing these issues, like depression, things of that nature, that, we may often miss as parents. So it's kind of like, okay, well, if you know your child, if you know when they're upset or when something's bothering them or things of that nature, that's great. But oftentimes, are we really addressing the underlying issues that they're facing, that they're coming across? Like if they are withdrawn, or you kind of experience or kind of just view a change in their sleep pattern, for example, as the article covers, hey, they're sleeping more oftentimes than not. They're pretty much, kind of not being, participating in anything social, even with family. They're kind of withdrawn from family, things of that nature. You may just want to kind of say, okay, is there something there that maybe I'm not qualified to talk to them about? Because we as parents, we want to protect our children. We want to kind of, give them, the best foot forward once they leave to go out into the world to be, upstanding citizens. But if we don't know what is going on within them, it's kind of hard for them to be, participate in anything socially, in any type of social environment, if they are, dealing with depression, and we can't, and we're trying to just kind of put a band-aid over it, so to speak. We're just kind of saying, oh, it's just this or it's just that, because we're looking at it from a perspective that is 20, 30 years old.
Ooh.
And outside of depression, this article covers, bullying, sexual activity, drug use, alcohol use, obesity, academic problems. I mean, not every child wakes up in the morning and is like, oh, golly gee, it's school. I can't wait. Unless it's like a Friday and there's some sort of fun activity or whatever. And I'm sure most parents try to make the child, understand that it's, they're going to have those times where school is going to be fun, but it's mostly work. It's mostly to get you to understand certain things, so when you get older, you can handle those things, better as they come. Every year is built upon the previous year. So if you're doing great in third grade, awesome. You're going to have to learn a little bit more on top of that when you go to fourth grade. But fourth grade is going to teach you some things that third grade also taught you, but you're going to have to expand on that. Same thing with fifth grade. When you go to fifth grade, it's going to expand what you were taught in fourth grade, and so on and so forth. Not every child is going to be like, oh, that's awesome, I can't wait to go. The majority of kids are like, oh my gosh, I really don't want to go to school. But to those parents that show their child and teach their child or children the benefits of going to school, the benefits of learning, the benefits of studying, the benefits of having a good sleep schedule, so you can be primed, so you're not always tired and, oh my gosh, I gotta go to school. No, 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 no. I'm so tired. I couldn't study. I couldn't focus. Those parents are going to have much more successful children. And just a word from our sponsors. Guys, hey, I know you've been watching the video. You're loving it, right? Thumbs up, huh? Likes, subscribe. You'll get back to it when I get you back to the video. Anyway, I wanted to quickly tell you about the company that I've partnered with called Credit Rent Boost. Pretty much allows you to basically have your rent that you pay monthly. Doesn't matter if it's an apartment, house, townhome, castle with a moat, if you have one, if you're rich like that, whatever. But guess what? You can actually have that reported to the credit bureaus as positive credit history that you're paying. So why not get credit for what you're already paying, right? Go to creditrentboost.com, and not only can you get credit moving forward for what you're paying for rent, little known secret here, for the past 2 years, you can get credit. So you can get credit for rent that you paid last year, the year before that, from 2020, right? So why not give them a chance? You can use my promotion code OVM24522, or better yet, I'll leave the link in the description box below. Might be the best thing you ever do. Now, get back to the video. Smash the like. Boy, I tell you, that guy's voice is super smooth. I can't get enough. What about you? Well, no, seriously. Outside of academic problems and issues and things of that nature, what are we talking to our kids about? If they're having issues in school, like what's going on, like why? Because the quote unquote troubled teens, air quote, they're no longer the ones just dropping out of school. You have the pressure of, oh my gosh, getting into a good college, and a lot of kids just burn themselves out before they graduate from high school. So there's a lack of interest there. There's a lack of, oh my gosh, the purpose. Like, why? Why am I going to go to school? Why am I going to go to college if I'm just going to end up in debt and, have to get a job that I don't like and work for 20, 30 years to pay off this debt that I really didn't ask for, things of that nature. And it's a matter of staying involved in the teens' education, basically. It's about being consistent. And that is the underlying premise of not only this episode, but just teaching in life, just life, basically, just being consistent. Like when you are consistent within yourself, when you're consistent with your mate, when you're consistent with, teaching your children, it's going to show, it's going to reflect, it's going to take time.
Yep.
It's going to take patience, of course.
Yep.
But it's going to take time, and you're going to see the curve start to go up. It's going to improve, and you're going to see that your children are going to open up to you more. You're going to see that they're going to come to you with questions that even if you don't have the answers, it's going to force you to also grow. Now, let's face it. Many of us as parents, we come to a certain point and we're like, I'm a parent. Not that we say we know it all, but we want our child to come to us. Come to me if you have an issue. Come to me if you have a problem. Come to me if you have any questions.
Yeah, that's true.
But are we kind of not being prepared to answer those questions when our child comes to us with those questions?
Good question.
I believe that preparation is key. I believe that by staying in contact with our children and not just allowing them to be so involved with social media, like take a break. Both articles address, the evolution of technology having an impact on our children today and cell phones and things of that nature. And our children just being totally disengaged. It's like you have dinner, like, is the child eating in their room? Or does everyone come together as a family at the dinner table? Like, get rid of the cell phones. Like, put the cell phones up. There isn't a call or or any or text or notification that is more important than that time that you can actually be with your children and engage with them. That's pretty much how you would find out, what's going on with them by talking to them, by asking them questions. Not the rigmarole of questions or just the boring questions. How was school? What did you learn today? If they didn't feel that they'd learned anything, they're just going to tell you what you want to hear. So you have to kind of figure out exactly your approach to get the information that you want, to decipher, number one, are they engaged in whatever class it is? Are they getting the most out of it? Gone are the days that we should be blaming the school for everything. Gone are the days that we should be like, well, the school should do this, the school should do that. We have to understand that the schools are pretty much there to educate our children, but they too are limited to what they can do. There should be a cooperative effort between the schools and the parents to say, hey, whatever the school teaches my child, I should follow with my child to make sure that they understand what they're being taught. That doesn't mean that you have to be an expert in statistics or quantum physics or whatever kids are taking these days. I mean, let's face it, many children are taking classes more advanced than we were taking, 20, 30 years ago. But it stands to reason that if we are aware of what they're taking, we should stay on top of, any possible, issues that may come up, any scenarios that they may have. I'm having trouble in school. Well, did you get a tutor? Did you talk to the teacher? No, I didn't. It's a matter of trying to talk to our kids without talking at them. Does that make sense? We have to talk to them. We have to try to engage with them to pull the information out, because if we're seeing, instances where these types of social issues, depression, bullying, alcohol use, drug use, peer pressure is still there. That was the biggest thing for me growing up, was peer pressure. Oh, falling in with the wrong crowd or things of that nature. If we're not asking the right questions or engaging with our children consistently, we're going to miss the mark on some things. And when our kids grow up and they get into adulthood and they're going to be faced with things, well, we're going to be like, well, why didn't you do this or why didn't you do that? Well, no one told me. I did not know. I was never taught this. I would not want to be that parent that has to hear this from their child that grew up in the same, household with them, or you engage with them frequently, for them to say, well, I was not taught this. No one ever took the time to teach me this. So how do you talk to your teen? How do you talk to your teen about, life just in general? What do they want to do with their life? What are their hobbies? What are their interests? And how do you kind of facilitate that conversation? It can feel uncomfortable because a lot of teens don't like to, oh my gosh, my dad wants to talk about sex, or my mom wants to talk about, dating and all that sort of stuff. I mean, a good way to kind of strike up a conversation about drugs or sex or any other uncomfortable situations, per the article there from the Very Well Family by Amy Moore, and I forgot to give her credit due. She's the editor-in-chief over there. She is basically to ask a question Like, do you think this is a big issue at your school? Do you think drugs is a big issue at your school? Do you think sex is a big issue at your school? Do you think vaping? Do you think peer pressure? Do you think bullying is a big issue at your school? And you listen to what they have to say. Now, as parents, it's very hard to not be judgmental or anything like that, but you have to make your expectations and your opinions clear without being judgmental. I know it's hard. Trust me, I do. It takes time. It takes growth. It takes patience within yourself, because this is how you become not only a better parent, but a better person, because now you have a better relationship with your child. Your child will now see more clearly what what is expected of them, versus, it just being bring home good grades. Don't get into trouble. Don't talk to this person. Don't talk to that person. I mean, it's important that your teens understand that you don't condone certain behaviors, and that they know the consequences of breaking those rules that you're setting, things of that nature. But also, you're letting them know the impact of what they are seeing, or maybe even be thinking about being involved in, the impact on them long term. So that way, doing that, having those types of conversations, no matter how uncomfortable they are. It's kind of uncomfortable just to talk to adults, but with teens, it's a whole different scenario. I can attest to that. But by the same token, you don't want to not have those conversations. Trust me, there are plenty of parents who run away from those conversations and try to leave it up to the grandparents or leave it up to someone else, because they themselves don't know how to handle those situations. They may have faced the very same things that a lot of these teenagers are facing today, as far as, drugs and things of that nature, or alcohol abuse, or depression, or any type of social anxiety, and they still don't know how to deal with it. So they pass the buck, so to speak. We have to stop passing the buck. We have to have those conversations with our kids, because they're the next generation. They're the next ones that we're handing the baton off to them, so to speak. So that way they can themselves, when they are parents, say, hey, you know what? I was dealing with this, but my parents talked to me, and I'm going to talk to you. That's how we stop generational curses and start generational blessings.
You said it yourself.
So guys, thank you. This has been the Into the Cypher podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. As always, thank you for the support. We're going to continue to grow, do our thing, continue to be the best version of ourselves. And as always, before you can love anyone else, you must first love yourself. And I am out this thing. Cypher.
I will not lose.
Into the cypher with your light.